Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network. And we are here to discuss Netflix's newest original blockbuster. It is The Electric State, written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and directed by the Russo Brothers, starring Millie Bobby Brown, Chris Pratt, and a mess of others. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Sean. I am joined this time by Sean Villa.
How we doing, everybody?
This is going to be a very interesting review, one of the ones that we don't always love to do on this channel, but we have to discuss the big movies. And Electric State, big is definitely one way of putting it.
It's a big movie.
It has a $320 million budget, and it has been one of those Netflix movies that have been hyped up for a long time from the streamer. It is, I believe, the third movie that the Russos have done for Netflix, directed, I should say. Let me double check on that. It's second one.
They did Gray Man.
They did the Gray Man. Yeah, I thought they did one other one in between that, but I guess they didn't. I'm thinking of Red Notice, which was not them. It's just another terrible Netflix movie. But they did the Gray Man back in 2022, and then now Electric State in 2025. They also produce the Extraction movies on Netflix. Have you ever seen the Extraction movies?
I actually quite like the Extraction movies.
I do too. I think the Extraction movies are cool, but they produced those and wrote the Joe Russo wrote the screenplays for Extraction 2 as well. But this movie brings them back with their Avengers writers, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Marcus and McFeely. And this is based on an art book that I have not been exposed to, but you, Sean, have been exposed to. So let's start with what that book means to you, what that book kind of entails, and then if you want to give your broad thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, so I've been aware of this movie for quite a while. I remember like when the news first broke that they were making an Electric State movie, I got very excited. I'm a big fan of I think it's considered a graphic novel. It's by a guy named Simon Stalenhag. It's primarily known for its illustrations, I would say. It has a very like ambiguous narrative, but it's a book that I have always been like a really big fan of since I discovered it probably like a couple years ago now. Primarily for those illustrations, but also because I think the world that it crafts in like the very sparse narrative pieces that it hints at is super compelling in like a sci-fi horror way. So basically, the world of the Electric State book is a post-apocalypse. It's a similar kind of plot where it's a young woman who's traveling across country to go and find her brother that is believed to like somehow be linked to these neurocasters, as they're called, which are like VR headsets. The way the book kind of presents itself is that this is a story pretty much after the world has ended, which is not at all the vibe that this movie gives me. In the book, she is traveling and we're seeing all of these giant robotics that a lot of the movie steals the imagery from, or I guess is adapting the imagery from. But there it sort of serves as this reminder that technology in that world has gotten out of control, which I really appreciate as like a visual metaphor, because there's these towering robots that are sort of like capitalistic. They're like big advertisements and they're like parade floats almost in a way. So they have this weird like pseudo like astropunk 60s kind of look about them. And then as the story progresses, they get more and more just like ambiguous. Like the robots go less and less of like, oh, this is like an advertisement that's kind of left abandoned. And now it's like this construction that doesn't really seem to have a point. And they become these very like haunting, undescribable, just like giant masses of machinery. And basically the story is it's about how everyone that's in these neurocasters is sort of becoming a hive mind intelligence. And they're robots that they've built are kind of acting on their own. The people are acting without like wills of their own. It's really just about the world has kind of been lost to technology and it's incomprehensible. And I think the horror in that is really effective. I think it's a really compelling world. The imagery's scary. The concepts are scary. It gets more and more in depth, but I won't spoil it because I think everybody should read the book. Despite how much I'm about to rag on this fucking movie, I think everybody should read this book. It's super compelling. The movie deals with the robots. It's sort of a like this movie's about racism, but not really. It's like we shouldn't like oppress other people, like very like, you know, third grade morals about robots here, where there's been a robot civil war and they've been like banished, and now Millie Bobby Brown has a young brother who is like kind of keeping the robots alive, but also there's like a VR company that sort of made all the world building sort of falls apart immediately. Yeah. Nothing really connects in the way that it does in the novel, and we're left with a very bland, nothing road trip movie through a world that should have been interesting, but through Marvelization is completely uninteresting to me.
Yeah, I would. So based on, I'm coming at it from the approach of I don't know the novel. I'm glad. Thank you for giving the layout of sort of what it is. The little bit that I did know about it was that it had that very dystopian kind of darker sci-fi edge to it. And when you started to see the coming attractions for this movie and the previews of what this was going to be, I knew immediately that was not what they were going for with this.
Yeah.
Which is upsetting because hearing your version, or I guess the actual version that was it was adapted from, that makes for me as something that could be like something like a mixture of like Blade Runner and concepts of what could be this great mech sort of story with human and mech.
It's what I've kind of coined as like quiet horror, which I think is it's come up a lot in like internet spaces. Like I know there's like a big thing with like liminal spaces now, which people kind of obsess over, which are like these like abandoned malls and like abandoned infrastructure that's like vaguely nostalgic, but something's just kind of like weird and off about it. This book is very much that to me. It's something that's like eerie more than it is horror. But you're right, it doesn't have any of the tone that this movie has. It's a completely different tone. And I feel like that's like one of my major problems with the movie is that I don't really know who this is for.
I think that's totally I think I was saying that to you before we started recording. I don't understand really what they were going for with this movie. Like it's, even if you look at it as like, if you compare it to the Marvel movies that this foursome of creatives have made together, right? You're building it off of the nostalgia of the previous movies, right? But the connective tissue of who those characters are that were built upon over years of storytelling.
Yeah.
To where you want, I don't know if the whole point is that they want us to feel something for our two leads in this movie or the robots, but at the same time, you don't really get anything from any of the characters across the movie, whether they're of human nature or they're a robot. Like there's nobody you're rooting for in this movie. You don't feel the emotion of the relationship, especially between Millie Bobby Brown's character and her brother. And the tone, I agree with you, is something that I was just like, why are we doing this? I'm not laughing at anything. There's not any, like, even the way that characters would interact with each other, it just seemed like it was something that, even in a world this also takes place in the 1990s, which I thought was really interesting. And why do we like?
Yeah, it's a book thing that they kind of brought over, but
so it's the same thing in the book, I guess.
Yeah, it's I think it's in the 90s. It might even be like late 80s, but whatever. It's kind of irrelevant. It's just about sort of, it's like alternate history basically.
Yeah, so alternate technology ravaged 1990s. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, but yeah, to your point, I think there was a mismatch between the humor of this movie and the content of it. I think this kind of has the humor of a kids movie and it has the characters of a kids movie, but it has like the actual written dialogue and content of like an adult sci-fi movie. You know, like Chris Pratt is walking around, he's talking about like arms dealing. He's dropping a couple shits, and I don't think there's any F-bombs in here. I think it's a PG-13. But regardless, it feels like the plot of this movie is very kids movie. Millie Bobby Brown's here. It invokes like a lot of Stranger Things, like young kid adventure kind of movie. But the world is about like, or I mean, it's supposed to be like a sort of depressing, like pre-apocalypse, current apocalypse, post-apocalypse, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, just scene by scene, it feels like weird. Like it feels very corporate to me. Like it kind of feels like they just scratched anything interesting out of the dialogue and out of the characterization to make like very bland, like this character's Chris Pratt. It's like, it's just Chris Pratt. Like there's nothing interesting about him. He's got the sidekick. We were talking before about how he's very much like his oh yeah, I'm a gunslinger. Like haha, you know, like cracking jokes, whatever.
It's like his version of like Indiana Jones and Han Solo is being placed in this movie. And the other thing is like, I I like Chris Pratt's version of Star-Lord, and I think that Star-Lord is a character that he created in collaboration with James Gunn and knowing who the character was in the comics.
Yeah.
But now it feels like in a lot of things that I've seen, even if I haven't seen the movie and I've just seen the trailers of certain things that have come post Guardians, and you put Chris Pratt in a different action world, he's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's partly, it's like, okay, is that his acting? Is that the way he's being directed? Like these are Marvel directors, so to speak. Like the Russos have only worked in these now big budget spaces.
I don't blame Chris Pratt for it though, because I think that the Guardians writing is surprisingly like in depth with him.
Yeah.
Where he's got like a certain sadness to him. He has a lot of like anger. There's an insecurity. Like he has a real character.
Yeah.
So this like goofy persona that Chris Pratt has is presented in those movies as sort of like a shield from like the real like inner man, right? It's good writing.
Yeah.
This movie is just like, Chris Pratt, we saw him being fun and goofy in Guardians of the Galaxy, so he's just going to be fun and goofy here. But there's nothing under that layer. So it kind of just feels like they were like, oh, well, it worked in Guardians of the Galaxy, and like we directed him well in Avengers, so we'll just give him the same character again. But nothing that made that character work is present here.
Nothing at all.
And it's the same problem with every other character in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, even like, well, I mean, we don't like. It doesn't even matter if we get into spoilers for this movie, I feel like. But like, for example, there's a scene at the end of towards the end of the film with him and his sidekick that could evoke something emotional, and there's nothing emotional about it.
Yeah, it does. Like, it does the undercutting thing that Marvel does, where it throws in a quip or a joke or whatever to like cut off any emotional connection that could happen. But also, I mean, who gives a shit about this like Anthony Mackie robot character? But you know, if the movie was trying to make me care about him, and even if I did care about him, it would fail because the scene is constructed in such a way where they don't trust the audience enough to like let you sit in emotion for a second.
Yeah.
They've got to hit you with like, I don't know, like with that taco is like playing like Motley Crue on the piano or something. It's just like, it's really just like dumb juvenile humor, and that's my point. Is like, I don't know, like what adult is watching this like. You know, like I don't get it.
Yeah, it's really, like
it's not there.
It's like the monkey with the cymbals. Like that's who wrote this movie.
Yeah, like it's just weird. It's a strange amalgam of like it feels like a movie crafted by an entity, you know, and like not like a vision. It's the same problem that a lot of these like huge high budget movies have, and I also kind of am starting to think that this is a Netflix thing, that this is a Netflix problem. Because a lot of the media that they put out feels like stuff where it's like, if I was on my phone for half this movie and I looked up, could I understand what's going on? It feels like that's like in the contract for these movies, that they can't like make you pay attention.
Some people are gonna be like doing things around their house while this movie is playing.
It's like write this movie as if like you are writing it for your 55-year-old mother who's vacuuming, but she also kind of wants to watch the movie and she can't pause it. It's like that's the level of like writing and like scene by scene consistency that we have, where it's like I could leave the room for 15 minutes during this movie, go watch the Ranger game, come back, and I'd still be like, oh, okay, I know what happened.
Yeah, you wouldn't miss any like important story beats or anything
just,
with
like,
character.
Nothing, right? Like in most movies, some of my favorite like writing examples are when a character will like do something or an actor will react in a certain way that will have payoff like way down the line of just like a look. Or like you slight me in some way and you can see the character take it in and then 3 scenes later it pays off, right? Like that's storytelling, that's good writing, that's good filmmaking. And like these kinds of movies are just like void of that. And for like an average audience member, realistically, I don't think they even notice. But like for people like us that are kind of like, you know, we study film and like we study storytelling, it's just, it adds this extra layer of just like, this isn't like a real movie. Like something's just like fundamentally missing here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come from like intention. It just comes from like, it's a product. You know, this movie's a product to me. And I have a really hard time looking at something that feels as like here you go, product, you know, just like dropped on your feet. It has people you like, you know, and being like, I'm going to give this any merit.
Yeah, be like, I'm going to be satisfied with what the end product is just because.
It's just like, it's begging me to not take it seriously. Like, it's just like, what is this? Like, I feel like nobody cared about this, or no one at the top cared about this, because, I mean, it's a $320 million movie. There's a lot of people involved. I'm sure the people that did, you know, the set design and the art direction and the sound, you mentioned the score, which I think is pretty decent. You know, like, there are people that care, but I think the problem is the creative, like, head of this Hydra is just like an evil creature.
So do you think so what you're alluding to is you think it's a Netflix problem, or do you think there could be?
I think it's like a both problem. Like I think it's just this combination of the Russos and these like S tier actors that don't have to put in any effort, and Netflix as a platform. Like it's this kind of like perfect cauldron of just like these are things that people like, except the actual Electric State property, which is why it's also so strange to me. It's like, you know, if you did this based on like a book that like everybody knew, like if this was like a Hungry Caterpillar adaptation, people would be like, I know that book, you know, like something like that. But like this is like a weird, like I think like Swedish or like Swiss graphic novel that we're adapting. So I don't know like where that comes from. But the rest of it is, yeah, like this weird kind of like amalgam of things that just speak to me as like, you don't have to try. Like this will do enough if you do like if you put no effort into it. It's like it's got funny characters. It has good actors that you like. It has directors you trust.
That was the part I was gonna bring up. So like, there's a lot of faces in this movie. Like, there's a lot. Like I'm just gonna run through the cast quick, just based on all people that we either hear in the robots or we see them as actual characters within the movie. Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt, like we said, are the two leads. They get Ke Quan in there for 2 roles. Stanley Tucci plays the villain. Then you also have Giancarlo Esposito, who's the resident bad guy always. You have cameos from Holly Hunter, Jason Alexander, Colman Domingo, Rob Gronkowski, actually. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
Also plays Blitz, one of the robots. Then you have Hank Azaria, Brian Cox, Jenny Slate, Woody Harrelson, Anthony Mackie, Alan Tudyk. Like, the cast is insane.
It's wild, yeah.
And so many of them are, like you were talking about, just void of their actual talent. It's like it's not coming to the forefront in this movie. It's just them playing the role of it's just the character on a sheet. You don't need to think about it more than that. It's just, play the character.
I don't even blame them. It's like I don't either. And it's there was someone else I just wanted to mention that you brought up. Giancarlo. Where it's like Giancarlo is a phenomenal actor. Like if you've watched Breaking Bad, if you've watched Better Call Saul, even some of the movies that he does, he is amazing. Like an amazing actor. But I think what's happened is that they came to him and they're like, hey, like you're going to be Gus Fring in this movie. But there's none of the nuance. None of the actual character work is done here. So like he's just doing his best and he sells it because he's Giancarlo. But like there's nothing under the surface. It feels like fake.
It reminds me of his character in Captain America, ironically enough. Actually. It's literally just like you're gonna be one of the toughest soldiers around. You're gonna be one of the best robot hunters. You can kill them all the time.
Right.
And this is who you're gonna be. You got it, you're a gunslinger. Ready and action. And that's how the scenes play out.
Yeah. I don't blame any of the actors for the way that they were portrayed here. I really think it's a writing problem, or maybe a directing problem too. There's just nothing under it. It's just a very thin blanket of a character description kind of based on their past roles. I know why everyone was cast in this movie. You understand what I mean? Like it's one of those things where it's like every actor that's in this movie, I'm like, right. Like I know what you're here to do. Like you weren't brought on to like bring something to the movie. Like you were brought on because they saw you in something else and they were like, yeah, we could use like that character here, but didn't write it with the care that the character that they based it on is actually like written by.
Yeah, even with the robots, like when I can imagine, like I could just picture it, them like being in a room with all the designs on a like whiteboard, right? And they're like, all right, well this robot's gonna be like the wisecracking Southern guy. Who can we get?
Right.
Who can we get? And then they're like, oh, it's gonna be Woody Harrelson. Great, let's send it out to Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
Like it's very obvious that that's what they're going for.
All right, here we go. Here's another thing I want to talk about. Woody Harrelson's character.
Yes.
Mr. Peanut.
Mr. Peanut.
The Planters mascot.
Yes.
This is like
not in the book, I'm assuming.
No. This might be, unless I'm forgetting something drastic. Oh, Ghostbusters. But other than Ghostbusters, this is the first time a character has been product placement. This is like a main character is product placement. I mean, what are we doing?
I know. It's strictly commercial. It's strictly capitalization.
And like, it's not funny. It's not played for a joke. Like they want to like make it serious. Like Mr. Peanut is a serious figure in this movie.
The most serious figure of the robot army.
Yeah, he's the leader of the robots, who again are like a stand-in for like we shouldn't oppress people. That's the way I read this.
Yeah.
But so it's like we have Mr. Peanut, the Planters mascot, as like the, I don't know, like the civil liberty leader of the robots. It's like, how am I supposed to take this? Like, I don't understand. You know, it's one of those. It's so like dumbfounding to me. Like, what emotion do you want from me? Like, I just, I don't know, man. I really don't.
Well, I want to read you some critical response quotes because I feel like
yeah, hit me.
So a lot of people, you're not in the minority. I'm just going to read you. This is like a big blurb from Wikipedia, but I think it's important to give for the context of this movie. 15% of 111 critics' reviews are positive. So 15% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average rating of 3.8 out of 10.
Too high.
Many critics took issue with the film's loose interpretation of the original novel. In a scathing review by the New York Times, the critic panned the film's creative departures from the source material. And this is part of what you were saying before. The book, there's a quote, the book is elliptical in narrative, muted in color palette, and melancholy in mood, whereas the movie is obvious, garish, and just plain dumb.
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect way to describe that this movie, like, I hate to be this person, but it feels like something was just made through ChatGPT. And I know that Marcus and McFeely have done good work in the past. Like they've worked along with these directors on things where they can showcase their talent in a different way. And I don't know, just kind of going back to the beginning, I don't know who this movie is made for. And I think that's the most complicated aspect to look at this movie for, is because like I don't know who's going to enjoy something like this.
I don't get it either. And you know, it misunderstands the source material to such a degree that, so I'll give you an example. So in the source material in the novel, I think that the main horror is kind of this idea that technology has gotten so out of control and like so away from us that we can't comprehend it anymore and we can't fight against it. So it's like these robots that we've made for advertisements are kind of strewn about, and they're like malformed and disfigured into things that become scary.
And the world around us is lonely and isolated.
The world is quiet and dead, right? And basically the message of the book to me was like, technology is terrifying when it gets out of our control. Like we need to be able to like stay ahead of it basically and like regulate it, or like
be human beings.
Like don't go too far away. The villain of this movie, Stanley Tucci, in the first like 10 minutes says something akin to what I just said, of like technology is good until it gets away from you. And that's the villain of the movie. Like that's the mindset that the protagonist is fighting against, is the thesis of the novel. So right away it kind of just falls apart. And you brought up the ChatGPT thing where it's like, oh, this is like a movie that feels like it's written by AI. It's kind of a movie that's like about saving AI. It's like these are like robots that people have invented and now they're conscious, but there's no conversation about them being conscious. Like this isn't Ex Machina where we're talking about like robots are like transcending and they're people too. It's a movie that's like, oh, actually like robots are good. The idea that people are trying to regulate technology is bad is sort of like what this movie's saying. So it's like on paper, if you actually do like a thematic analysis of this movie, it's like a pro AI movie. So again, like this movie isn't made for people like me who's doing a thematic analysis of it. And if you can remove yourself from all of the things that we've mentioned about this being a bad adaptation, this having no narrative merit, this having a completely like just stupid, dumbfounding theme, right? It just fails to be entertaining.
That 100%
it's a boring movie.
It is.
So, you know, if you just look at it as a movie, like if you don't look at it with a critical eye, you're just the average viewer and you're watching this movie and you go, this is pretty boring. I look at it from the critical lens and I see all these other fucking problems with it. And that's where I like come to that rating that I was telling you about, where I think that this is like a 1 out of 10 movie. Like there's really nothing here for me to enjoy. Like it's boring scene by scene. If I turn my brain off and I'm just popcorn television, it's not even like Morbius level entertaining where I can kind of like laugh at some of the stuff. It's just nothing. And then if I actually
it's like insulting.
And if I try to make it something, like if I try to give some kind of like explanation to like why this was made, it's for all the wrong reasons. Like it was made with almost like ill intent, I feel like. So I have really nothing positive to say about it. So, I mean, I don't know. That's sort of where I fall on it. You seem like generally more
I think that it's
okay with it.
I think that the reality is that we're unfortunately in a time where there are, and I don't want this to be a negative thing on the film industry because that's not what it is either, because I do think there's also a very different, like you were talking about, there's a different difference in like what is being made for theaters and what is art and what is independent film versus like the machine that Netflix is. And you could look at Netflix in a bunch of different ways, right? Like you could look at it even if you want to take it in down the road of like the award season this past year with a movie that a lot of people villainized for good reason because they didn't enjoy the movie and they thought it was a bad movie and it was nominated for Best Picture versus something like this where it's like, okay, regardless of how some people might feel about Marvel movies, something like Guardians of the Galaxy, you're following these characters. It's still a $200+ million budget movie, but there are stakes. There are characters you care about. There is good writing. There is good direction. There is dealing with the layers of characters. They made you care about a fucking raccoon so much that it made people cry in the theaters.
Yeah, it you know, despite it being kind of like a lot of people argue the same thing that I'm arguing about this movie with Marvel, about how it's like not like real cinema. And you know, I could kind of understand that point of like it's more of an event and like a more of like a sequence of movies than it is like it should be a standalone thing. But you can tell that people that are making them care, like not just about money, but about like the actual characters. Like they know that there's like a heart to it and that audiences care and they can't fuck it up. And like when Marvel's really bad is when it loses all of those things and you make just like something that
feels like slop.
Yeah, it just feels like slop that you're supposed to go like, I'm a good little piggy and go over to the trough and just eat up. This is Electric State is that movie. It doesn't have care. This movie was not made because someone was like, I love the source material. I want to adapt it properly. I want to like really tell this story to like a new audience.
That's something I want to kind of I'm curious about now that we can't really go down a rabbit hole. We don't know the answers to these questions. But the book was released in 2018. Okay, the Electric State book was released in 2018. The rights to the book were bought by the Russos in 2017.
Oh, really?
So it was before they had gotten the eyes, I guess, again, probably their literary agent sent it over to them. They were like, this is really great, like material. This is something we'd be able to do something with. They also were not the initial directors for the movie. They initially approached, because they were producers on it, they initially approached Andy Muschietti to do the movie version of this. And then they decided to make it a directing project for themselves later on when I guess they went to Netflix. So part of me also is like, I wonder... It's that whole, I love that you brought that up in the beginning of the review, was like the Netflix part of it. It's like, I can't help but think that they might have had a lot to do with the end result that we get with this movie. Yeah. I mean, even the fact that like, so we were talking before we started recording about Millie Bobby Brown, and I'm a big Stranger Things fan. I think you enjoy the show. Yes. And I think she's great in her role as 11. But there's something with, and this is not an insult of her as an actress, but if you look at her filmography thus far, she's only done, the only thing she's done outside of Netflix is Godzilla. Right. And there's not a lot there also in terms of her character. Her performance also isn't that great. But the human characters in the monster movies, they're not made for that necessarily anyway. But you look at her filmography and it's like, well, she hasn't even been able to, she hasn't been that actress to be like, oh, okay, you know, like I did Stranger Things. Let me go and do like an indie now.
Right, like Tom Holland.
Tom Holland, or something like, for an even more direct example, Sadie Sink.
Oh, true.
Who just went and did The Whale a couple of years ago and was great in the movie. Like, Millie's not going out and doing things like that. So part of me is like, what if Netflix was like, you know, we know you guys have that novel and it's based on a really big idea and we want to start doing big movies. We want to do things with star power. We want to do things that'll appeal to the masses. And you know what? We have the perfect person to lead this movie because it follows a young female protagonist.
Right.
And it's Millie Bobby Brown. And I don't want to blame it all on that either because, again, like you were saying, people need to make these decisions. People need to decide, okay, this is a script that I get behind. Let me go ahead and sign on to this now.
Yeah.
But that aspect of it is terrifying to me because it's like these are things that some of the biggest and best actors, because there's talent in this movie like we talked about. Like there are actors that I deeply care about that are in this movie, and I, same as you, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, this movie is devoid of anything that could be entertaining in any sense.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not even the actors. Like I'm very hard on like the writing in this and the directing and the producers and all that. And you're right. I don't know what the behind the scenes is. It's kind of bewildering. I didn't know that they had the rights that early on. Like they were from like the ground floor.
Yeah.
As you're just saying. So it's confounding like how this kind of came together in the way it did. But you know, even the writers here, like these guys wrote Avengers Endgame. Like, I love that movie.
Yeah.
So I know that there is talent behind it. It's not necessarily the same kind of talent. It's a very like big budget talent of like, I think they're just good at working with studios.
And they started with Arrested Development though.
Oh, I know, dude. And
Like,
Arrested
they've
Development,
come from-
I mean, talk about good writing. It's one of the best written shows on like ever. It's hard to find better comedy writing.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, you'd have to.
They came from comedy, which is also so ironic.
I know,
considering
that this
where
isn't
they're
funny
at
at
now,
all.
it's
There's
like,
not one good joke in this entire movie. So, you know, again, that kind of makes me think like maybe this is a studio thing. That like maybe these are really talented people. I'm just gonna say they are really talented people because they've made some great movies in the past. And you know, argue all you want about like Avengers not really being like a traditional movie, but like the spectacle of it is something that is pretty much like unparalleled. You can't really find like the way that like an Avengers Endgame comes together in basically anything else. It's sort of like its own unique thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I know that there is talent here. I know that there's a capacity to work with like certain studios. So maybe this is a Netflix thing. Maybe it's the fact that this was like a tax write-off and nobody cared. Maybe it's like, we're going to give you $50 million and just like, you need to like do this and nobody wanted to. Like maybe the Russos were reading this book and they were like, why do we have the rights to this? Like, this isn't really us. Like, I don't really want to like.
Where they tried to make the movie they wanted to make and nobody would do it, so they're like, all right, I guess let's adjust our strategy.
Or they just like didn't want to make like an eerie, creepy horror movie. Like, that's not a Russo kind of thing. Like, they didn't want to make like a high concept like lonely sci-fi movie. Like, maybe they were like, we'll try to make this into an Avengers movie, and they just like it didn't really work out.
Yeah,
you know, like it's not that kind of source material, but they were forced to do it. I don't know, but whatever it was, they made a piece of garbage.
Yep.
That's sort of the end result.
And your score is a 1.
It's a 1.
Right. Yes.
There's nothing here to enjoy. I would actively say you should not watch this. I think it's actually like, I think it does harm to the industry by watching this. Because if we get more stuff like this, like it just sucks the soul more and more out of things. Like this is $320 million is 50 Honoras. 50 Honoras. So if that money... If Netflix can learn to disperse that money to projects that could actually like have a chance at being like an impactful movie, because that's what this is all about, man. You're trying to form like emotional connections to people. Movie like storytelling is supposed to be touching, and this movie's not touching anybody.
I will say this, and I think, and I understand where you're coming from. I've also said the same thing about Netflix and the machine that they are, and I don't want to entirely shit on them as a platform because they also are responsible for doing film, like acquiring movies at festivals for bigger price tags and doing like their platform is made for anybody and everybody, literally. But these are the types of movies that they champion. These are the types of movies that they willingly are like, let's give $320 million to. And that aspect of it, like that sector of what you're talking about, I think is 100% with what you're saying, where it hurts the industry as a whole.
Nothing against Netflix. I think like, you know, they started film and TV streaming and they've made like some great originals. I think Netflix is I mean, you know.
Mindhunter.
Yeah, and Mindhunter. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. So it's like they can make amazing stuff. They're a good platform. I got no beef with Netflix. They're coming to New Jersey. You're going to hire me eventually, Netflix. I'm not talking smack. I promise you. But yeah, I think the audience kind of needs to just like guide them in the right direction is really what I'm saying. Like, I think the way that the business decisions get made is ultimately due to money. That's just kind of the way that any business operates. And if we can get them to a point where instead of dulling out all of this money to one movie that nobody really wants to see.
Let's break that up.
Yeah, if we break it up and then we can fund 6 more seasons of Mindhunter and we can get Stranger Things out and we can make a couple more originals and, you know, drop like an indie film. Like, did you see It's What's Inside? That's a Netflix original.
That's another movie they acquired. Yeah.
Right, great. More of that.
Yeah.
$320 million that could go to that would be so much better for the industry, for Netflix, for everyone involved, for like the film community, for the audience. It's just a net positive. So I'm not saying it as like a pessimistic, like Netflix bad. I'm saying it as like we could do better. Like there, and I think the people kind of have the power with what they choose to watch. So in my opinion, don't watch this movie.
So I'm also gonna let you know really quick, just to continue on the on that trajectory and what we were talking about. So Netflix, the head of film at Netflix was a guy named Scott Stuber for a while. And he left he doesn't have a great resume, so to speak, in terms of film. But he was replaced by somebody else that was like a lot of people were talking about he's an innovator. He had his own production company. His name's Dan Lin. He's done smaller movies. He's done big franchise filmmaking. This movie was made before he was hired. So we might be going in a direction going forward with Netflix where maybe they're going to have an expansive sort of viewpoint on how they're going to make films for everybody. Yeah. And I know that part of it is also like one of his initiatives was like he wants to so like Netflix was just one giant film division. Everybody was under the same umbrella, and he's like, no, he goes, now we're going to have like a comedy and romance division, and we're going to have like a thriller and horror division, and we're going to have the people that divvying it up to the people that actually could be telling these stories in the right way for wider audiences.
That sounds great.
I think it could be a recipe to success, but regardless, we're talking about the Electric State, and this movie, I agree with you. You got my score down 100%. Yes. I'm talking about it. I also don't think there's really much redeeming qualities to it. I did the one thing that stuck out to me was the score. It felt very Amblin-esque to me. And I thought that, again, like this made me want to read the book for the fact that I know that it's so the opposite of what this is.
You should read the book. Everyone watching this should read the book. Even if it's not your thing, it's made with a really unique vision. I think it's really cool. All of his work is cool. Electric State's my favorite. Shout out Simon Stalenhag.
Nice.
Oh shit, dude. Sorry.
I got you.
I forgot your name, man. It's something. It's like Swedish.
It is Simon Stalenhag. Yes.
Okay, all right, I got there.
Simon Stalenhag.
Yeah.
But yes, my final score for this is going to be tied with my career low. It is going to be a 2 for me. I also can't recommend this movie to too many people, but you know, to each their own. If you want to give it a try, go ahead. But let us know in the comments if we're the only ones. I know we're not the only ones that think this because the movie has a terrible score on Rotten Tomatoes. Has a terrible score on IMDb. I hope one day there is a good adaptation of what this book is supposed to be.
I don't think it's gonna.
I don't think it would happen.
I think that's kind of soiled the chances.
Yeah,
for that happening.
which is unfortunate. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a like if you guys can. Subscribe to us here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and you can check out all of our other reviews. Sean just got done talking about Invincible week to week with the rest of our animation crew. I'm currently covering Daredevil Born Again right now with Vinny. We're covering White Lotus. We're just about to wrap up Severance. We have movie reviews up for Black Bag. Opus is coming. So there's a lot of things that you guys can check out, and you guys can subscribe to us and follow us on all our social media. All that stuff is below me in the video currently. It's also in our YouTube description. So be sure to share all that with your friends and family if you guys could. Just signing off. I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I've been Sean Villa.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.